noticed some changes in my body. So I got a bit overweight. Actually, I accumulated a lot of weight. And then I also noticed some abnormal issues like hair growth in my toes. So at that time, it wasn't alarming because it's something that is not seen. So what made me now decide to go and get checked up was the pelvic pain that I was experiencing at that point. No, in 2013, December is when I conceived. Around February, I got so much pain and I decided to go to the hospital. And I went to the hospital. The doctor I met there told me that the baby was fine. And the doctor told me, you can manage this with painkillers. It's not alarming, the baby is fine, but they didn't do any check. So I told them, no, just admit me. The doctor said no. So I went back home with my painkillers. I took them faithfully. The next day, I was admitted, and this time it was a miscarriage. So when my gynae came in, he told me, he attributed the miscarriage to PCOS and told me when I conceived, I should have reached out to him so that he can put me on drugs that balance my hormones and all those things. Women who are suffering from fertility issues don't really talk about it, as in it gives you stigma in the society, so you just keep it to yourself. At times you see the signs, but you don't take it seriously. So that discrimination and that criticism is something that pains, and not even PCOS, even the other fertility-related issues. There are so many women I know who have PCOS, who are big, and those women swim and they work out, but they don't lose the weight. It's depressing, and if you're not careful, someone can run into depression. That's why you need a very good support system. So what I did is I've kept myself busy with work and then with friends. I smile a lot. And the only people that I drew strength from was my mom and my best friend, and a few other friends who were there for me, who were not judgy, who were praying for me, who knew what I was going through, and who were just always there even to date. And I told God, you know what, I will just wait for you. I'll not force anything again. So now I have peace of mind. I'm happy with my body. I dress it up. I make sure I get the nice dresses that make me look good. So just finding that inner peace, it really helps.
To just understand what exactly PCOS is about and why many women are dealing with it and why it goes misdiagnosed, with me is Dr. Kireki Omanwa. He is a gynecologist and also a fertility expert, and of course Beatrice Kathure, who is living with PCOS. Thank you for your time. Now, you're losing weight is how you are able to conceive your children. How come it worked for you?
I don't know. Because I didn't know I have conceived, because I did ovarian drilling on 2014. So from there my period was regular. So I think June this year is when I conceived, and I knew after
June last year.
Last year, sorry. It's when I conceived after losing some weight. Yeah. But before I lose some weight, you lose weight naturally. You have to undergo something, like that time I was stressed. So I think stress forced me to lose weight. The same case with the second born. I went so much pressure from the family. I was depressed. I think for around 8 months, I lost a lot of weight then. That's when I conceived naturally.
Dr. Harry, they say you can't really pinpoint what causes PCOS. There's some that say it could be because of genetics, or it could be because of environmental factors. From your experience, what exactly is it?
Research which was done in Australia some time ago actually showed a family connection. Patients who had polycystic ovarian syndrome, 24% of them had sisters who had polycystic ovarian syndrome. 32% of them had family members, could be mother or auntie, who had polycystic ovarian syndrome. But then when we say that it is genetic, we have to isolate a gene which is responsible for polycystic ovarian syndrome. Such a gene has not been isolated. So it's more of the connection that, okay, X has polycystic ovarian syndrome, her sister has polycystic ovarian syndrome, and then when you take these families together, you say there is a familial connection.
And when we talk about environmental factors, what exactly are we pointing at that could be a cause for PCOS?
I think it's lifestyle, the way we eat, the way we drink, whether we do any exercise, and so on and so forth. We have changed the way what we used to eat and how we eat it, and our physical exercise has also changed completely. Because if you look at how our grandparents and great-grandparents, the way they used to eat, the types of foods they used to eat, and how they used to eat them, there was less of fatty foods, less of processed foods. They were very active. They would go to the shambas and walk long distances. So you never find actually people who are overweight per se, or even if they were there, there were very few.
Definitely, they say there's a lot of misdiagnosis when it comes to PCOS. Some live with it, have no idea. You knew you had PCOS at some point. What brought you to that conclusion?
After the second born, I tried having another baby immediately. That is after 1 year. But before then, I had started irregular periods, severe headache, and abdominal pain, a very severe, like liver pains. So every time I go to see a doctor, you mama, you are stressed. You mama, you just relax, your periods will come. You have UTI. So I was misdiagnosed. Until one day I decided myself, I will go and ask for a scan. That when I went in a public hospital in Kitengela, I requested for a scan. That when I was told I have PCOS.
But despite the ovarian drilling, you still did not conceive.
Yes.
Okay, so Daktari, is this now affirming the fact that the symptoms vary from one woman to another, hence why misdiagnosis is very high?
That is true. We all, I mean, just like any other disease, it may present in one person slightly different from somebody else. So that is why once after taking the medical history, we do other tests to either support or confirm what we are thinking could be the problem, or to give us some other light. I think listening to the patient, getting as much information, because my teachers used to say, if you listen to a patient properly, 50% of the diagnosis, you'll have an idea of what is going on. And then the extra, that is diagnostics and the lab work, give you the other 50%, and you have your diagnosis. It comes back again now to how do we treat it? You mentioned Clomid, you give Clomid, and then, and so on and so forth. Yes, we do use Clomid for treatment.
Or maybe before we get to the treatment, I think at this point I need to take a short break. But when we come back, Beatrice earlier mentioned that some of the symptoms she has, especially the facial hair, her own mother did. So she thought it was normal. However, the issue was her mother never had a problem conceiving. So when we come back, Daktari will help us understand why there's a difference between mother and daughter, and how one can have symptoms and still not have issues with conceiving. When we return, PCOS is a conversation. Stay with us.
Get up to 95% financing for all brand new vehicles, payable within 60 months. What's more, you can access a Biashara Boost credit facility of up to 200,000 shillings and 2 free memberships for Maisha cover from Amref Flying Doctors. Family Bank, with you for life.
Get free access to digital learning today. For primary and secondary students, one can now access learning and revision materials that has been approved by KICD. Dial *291# and subscribe to Safaricom Digital Learning and Shupavu 291 today. Tufungue njia, elimu iendelee.
When the world changed, it made us go back to the simple joys and love the little things even more. like serving up your best, eating together, and sharing more. Now, we'll take nothing for granted. And always remember to taste the simple joys. Coca-Cola. Taste the simple joys.
Beat sensitivity pain fast with Sensodyne Rapid Action for clinically proven relief in 60 seconds.
At Timasako, we are a reflection of you. We are a stable, financially sound institution providing tailor-made services to add value to your life, time, and money. We are guided by your aspiration. We are Timasako, a true reflection of you.
Lifebuoy, the world's first to report its sanitizer is over 99.9% effective against the COVID-19 coronavirus.
When we moved from analog to digital, we took the opportunity to share our talanta. And the rise of local radio represented our voices mtaani. New ICT and educational platforms are going to make sure that no one is left behind.
Communications Authority of Kenya, opening your world.
Welcome back to Health Diary. My name is Gladys Gashanja. Today our conversation is PCOS. Before we went to break, Beatrice, you had a story about how your mother shares some of the symptoms you have, but she hasn't struggled with conceiving. How come?
I don't know.
I like the way you start with, I don't know. Okay.
But what I can say, in our family, I am the only one who has the problem conceiving. My sisters are very fertile. My mom had no issue. The gap between me and my siblings is 2 years. That means mom was okay. Even my aunties, both side, dad side and mom side, nobody had an issue.
So what are these symptoms she has? Facial hair?
So the only thing my mom had is a facial hair. And even I can remember a cousin has the same, but they have no issue with conceiving.
Okay.
Daktari, explain that.
Now, that is nature. That is nature, and that is why I said some of these patients have these symptoms, but have no issues at all in getting pregnant. Others don't even know that they have polycystic ovaries. Like your mom, for instance, she had some facial hair, no problems at all getting pregnant. So this is why it is a syndrome, and there is something which we call polymorphism in that. You may have the same syndromes, but the manifestation of the problem will vary from one person to another. But most of the patients are in between. They may have one of these or one or two or three of the whole spectrum of syndromes, of the syndrome, and they may have issues getting pregnant.
Beatrice, in your pursuit to conceive, you tried ovarian drilling, as you'd mentioned earlier, but it did not work. What did the doctors say?
It came to a point where he suggested some injections like that. But before that, he requested my hubby to go for a checkup. And in African, men never said to go for a checkup. So when he refused, I said, even me, let me take a break.
So you stopped doing the treatment? So I stopped
taking any treatment from them. That was January last year. Yeah.
And in June, you had conceived?
Yes.
Okay, Daktari, ovarian drilling. What are the success stories and what are the minuses? Because clearly it didn't work for her.
Maybe let's start with, we have a patient with polycystic ovarian syndrome. What do we do with her? The question of what we are going to do will depend on the patient. If the patient's issue is irregularity of the periods, she has no issue of wanting to get pregnant, then the problem is very clear. Most of the time, we'll tell her, look, two options. We can either put you on some medications to regularize your period such that every month you have a period. The other group is the ones who are trying to get pregnant, like our sister here. That is now, first of all, once you've done that, there are many things we take into consideration. Age is a very big factor. We start looking, as you said, your husband was asked to come and give a sample. So once we've checked, okay, the tubes are okay, the husband is okay, now let us deal with the problem. There are different ways of approaching this. We may use tablets like the ones the doctors were suggesting, or they even used for quite a number of times, which are quite common. There's Clomid and there's Letrozole. And what they actually do is they try and increase the number of what you call follicles which are released. Number two, diet is of extreme importance. Some of these patients struggle with weight. So we tell them, if you can reduce your weight by about 5 to 10% of the starting weight, what happens is that the periods become regular, and with the regularity of the periods, it's much easier, to plan, to conceive, and so on. Number three, exercise is very important. What we are doing nowadays is actually what you mentioned, what you were directed to. You were taken to theatre, and they did what is called ovarian drilling. It's a very simple and straightforward procedure, if you know how to do it. It is done laparoscopically, meaning that we put a camera through the abdomen, and then we go in with an instrument and we drill holes. These holes, so we have to be careful, because sometimes we may actually burn the ovaries completely, which later on you find, okay, I had ovarian drilling, but I never got pregnant. I would take a patient to theatre as a last resort to do ovarian drilling.
All right, now for you, Beatrice, you have a child, and actually two, and they're expecting your third. And the question would be, just listening to Daktari, does PCOS affect the, normal pregnancy, childbirth, and having a normal child?
With the second baby, I labored for around 5 days. 5 days? Yes.
Wow.
Because nobody knew what I was having, a cyst. So when I go for a checkup, like one midwife insulted me seriously. She told me, "Why mama uko na gas, si mtoto?" So you can imagine, you have labored for 5 days, you have been going for clinics, then at the last moment you are told you have gas. And she admitted, and she gave me some medicine to treat UTI.
That is absolutely unacceptable, and I think we need better treatment of patients who come to the clinics, and you have a record. I think that is grossly unfair for a midwife to do that. Coming back, maybe they just add on to what the question that you asked, whether polycystic ovaries can affect pregnancy and labor. Yes, they have to be followed up. For instance, once you get pregnant, we need to know, for example, how is your sugar level right at the beginning. Where when you get to about 28 weeks, we do what is called an oral glucose tolerance test, which is supposed to be for every lady who is expectant, but most of these patients, we really need to follow them up, because we know that they can have an issue with that. When it comes to delivery, it is not necessarily because of the polycystic ovaries. That should not be an issue.
I knew what I was going through. I went into depression. I cried a lot. The pressure was too much. Sometimes even the suicidal thought would come. Even now, I do have that, because being the breadwinner and everything, so sometimes I get the suicidal thought. I'm having a baby, so where will I take the baby? But I can say this time my husband is supportive. I had to call him to my doctor.
Dr. Kiraki,
yes.
So many couples that are going through this. Some the man understands, some he does not understand. Is there some sort of sensitivity that is put across to some of the couples that come through your doors so that they understand what the intricacies of PCOS are?
Number one, not many people know about polycystic ovarian syndrome. That is why I said right in the beginning, I thank you for this program, because you bring up topics which are educative, which will help people understand some of these problems that affect us as couples and so on. So when the couples come through, obviously you talk with them, you try to explain to the lady, this is the diagnosis. And luckily in the last few months, the men are coming along. Whether willingly or unwillingly, we don't know.
At least they're coming.
They're coming.
Yeah.
They're coming. And we are thankful for that. So some of the questions they ask, what is this daktari? Is this something that is hereditary, for example? How can we sort of overcome it? And so on. So what I would maybe suggest is, apart from having such a program like this, is maybe to spread the word. Talk more often, go to churches, wherever there are people, wherever there are ladies, there's bound to be, or there are bound to be ladies who have issues with polycystic ovarian syndrome and consequently fertility as well.
Treating, managing PCOS is an expensive affair. Do you have help with NHIF perhaps? Are insurance companies receptive to covering PCOS cases? What is your experience?
In Kenya, there is no insurance cover which covers the PCOS. You have to manage from your own pocket. The only thing NHF can cover is scan, which is, I think, 2 scans in one pregnancy, and you can use it during delivery. The rest you have to manage it from light, from clinics.
Daktari, we're still trying to figure out PCOS, but there have been many cases. What is going on with the policymakers?
When you talk about treating infertility, because polycystic ovarian syndrome falls into that category, the insurance companies will knock you out. It is very unfortunate. So something needs to be done, because it is discriminatory. Because if you're going to pay for the treatment of, let's say, pneumonia, you're going to pay for the treatment of, for surgery, why not pay for the diagnosis and even treatment of polycystic ovarian syndrome, or infertility for that matter? So we need to have a mechanism, we need to have a policy that is going to take care of these patients who have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and not only, okay, we have diagnosed them and you have paid for this, what do we do with them? Some of them may need intrauterine insemination, some of them, their husbands have issues, some of them may need IVF, and so on and so forth.
Okay, Beatrice, people have looked you strangely, walking around with a beard, trying to conceive, all the hurdles. What would you like them to understand?
If you have the hair, you have to shave every day. Because you walk in the street, someone is looking at you, you have a beard. Even the so-called doctors, I'm sorry to say that, some does not understand the pain we go through. It is a painful journey, an expensive one, but my prayer is that people should understand. We never ask a couple why you don't have a child. You never know.
Well, the intricacies of PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, something that most people do not understand, but at least today you have an idea. The next time you see a woman growing a beard, she's struggling with acne, weight gain, and many other symptoms that you might not be privy to, just stop and think about the struggles she might be going through. But also to the policymakers, the challenge is, let's have more structures and resources supporting those that are living with PCOS. Time for the health tip.
There are 2 main hormones, estrogen and progesterone. And estrogen is made in fat cells. So if a woman has more fat, more weight, they actually will produce more estrogen than progesterone. So if a woman is overweight and consumes a lot of dairy products and eats a lot of meat, then the chances are they are going to have too much estrogen, and this makes hormone problems. Also very, very common, particularly in women, is they get thyroid problems. And the thyroid is a gland here that produces thyroxine that gives you energy. And what happens is too much estrogen interferes with the receptor for the thyroid hormone. So what's very good are beans, because beans, soybeans, lentils, chickpeas, they contain what are called phytoestrogens or plant estrogens. They actually block the estrogen receptor, which lowers the estrogen load. So eating more beans, less meat, milk, losing weight, controlling your blood sugar, these are the things that really help hormonal problems.
Well, that has been Health Diary coming to you from the Garden City Residencies. If you have any comment and of course suggestions, please write to us on our social media handles. My name is Gladys Gashanja. Until next time, see you.